All right,
Thank
so
you.
let's get right to the matter at hand. What's the situation this morning in Gran Couva?
This morning, I think we're seeing the continued frustration of the residents. This has been an ongoing situation since we had the heavy rainfalls in November of 2022. I don't know if you recall that 1 week or 14 days of torrential rain in November that led to a number of landslips countrywide. Gran Couva, however, was very significantly affected. We had site visits by myself and my colleague MP Arnold Ram. We had reached out to all stakeholders, and so now the residents are saying, look, I as their representative would have gone to them, shown exactly what we would have done, but you are working with an executive who makes promises about work that will be done, and then nothing gets done. So that is really where we've gotten to the boiling point of the frustration, where there's no accountability. So once we're told in 2022, shortly after, early December, the Prime Minister himself made an announcement that $100 million would be given to the roadworks from emergency roadworks coming out of that weather event we had in November 2022. We are in 2024, no work has been done. The situation remains the same and indeed is worsening. And so you are seeing the residents show their frustration for that issue.
But what is the state of the roadway? What is it like?
So along the Cameron Road, the road collapsed completely in 2022. Thankfully, we lost no houses in that particular space, but persons did lose access points to their homes. There is an alternative route that persons have been utilizing, but given the volume of traffic, that road is also taking a severe beating. Higher up along that Gran Couva Road, at the junction between Gran Couva and Brasso and Flanagan Town there, by a very popularly known space called Massa Compound, there's also a further landslip. Now, when we talk about connectivity and connecting communities, if you are living in Tabaquite, Brasso, Flanagan Town, etc., that Gran Couva access point is such a critical access point, especially if you're going to South Trinidad, if you're going to Cuba, etc. It cuts down the driving time. Last year, we had an issue with mudslides at the Waraka area, which left the communities in that central range and that surrounding point almost completely cut off from the rest of Trinidad and Tobago, because you couldn't get into Chaguanas you couldn't get into Gran Couva, you couldn't get past Waraka to get into South. And when you leave our infrastructure, this is a basic need. It ought not to be something that citizens have to concern themselves with at all. I, as a representative, an elected representative, my hope is always very sincerely to meet with residents to talk about things like community development and community building. But when we have to spend our time as representatives discussing basic infrastructure, something that ought to be just part of government priority in terms of maintenance and improvement, but we're here now using TV time, using interview time, using protest time, civic action time, to discuss something that is just basic. There are connection roads, there are roadways, there's a Ministry of Works. You do your job, and we ought not to have this discussion. November 2022 to January 2024, the residents have been more than patient. They have given more than a fair chance. And then you had a Minister of Works last year during the budget very flippantly say all roads in Trinidad and Tobago will be fixed in 2024. So we are saying make sure our roads are a priority.
But what is life like for the residents of the area? Because if they have to use alternate routes, I'm just thinking, what does that mean for business in the area? What does that mean for school children? What does that mean for residents who have to go to work?
Yeah, correct. I mean, it is more than an inconvenience. It is a total disrespect to residents in the area, residents in the community. This isn't even, you've seen it across the country where persons talk about the potholes and whatnot. This is the land completely caving. These are homes that are nestled within the central range. if you have a serious government, a serious administration, the testing required would have been completed. The MP, residents, everybody would have been reported to. We would have been told this is what the findings are, this is what can be done, this is the timeline. It's just a matter of treating persons with respect and dignity. Obviously, businesses have been affected. Again, persons are utilizing the alternative route, but the alternative route is taking such a battering. These are also very important, very critical agriculture communities. You have the Montserrat, you have the cocoa farmers, you have the Gran Couva cocoa estate, you have the La Vega spaces in there. And they're, I mean, such valuable contributors to national development, to ecotourism, to, you know, and a space that we ought to be going into and treated with such scant respect because you can't do the basics of fixing the roadway. I think it's very unfortunate that we've had to resort to this type of action when it ought to have just been treated with as a matter of course.
Have there been any talks between, let's say, persons from the Ministry of Works and Transport and you, or even members of the community?
So the Ministry of Works and Transport have been, the ministry itself in terms of the administration, outside of when I have asked questions in Parliament via the budget debate and question time in Parliament, have been silent. What we do is I put everything in writing. It is very important to me that we show a sustained effort over time that we've been trying to get these roadworks prioritized, particularly these landslips stabilized. Some of the employees of the Ministry of Works who are from in and around the area and who understand, I mean, genuinely understand the plight of the residents will tell me, look, it is just keep pushing because they are understaffed. There is a space where they are unable to execute. They've done all of the paperwork. Everything has been sent up. And it is just a matter of waiting for the necessary sign-off. And so when you get to the top, and the persons at the very top are so disconnected from the reality facing the residents, this is what we get. You get 2 years almost, a year and a half, of persons just waiting for something that was promised. They understood that it was an emergency. As a matter of fact, within the Gran Couva area, there are a number of the satellites that allow for the radio stations to it. So I've also had persons within the radio space calling me to find out what could be done about the access points to get to their satellites. And still, even with all of the advocacy, even with all of the representation, we keep getting to this point where the Ministry of Works refuses to work, and that is where we're at.
So there has been no solid assurance coming from the ministry as to when this will be fixed?
Absolutely no solid assurance, no timelines, no accountability, no, like I said, no respect for the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago. However, the chairman of the Couva Tabaquite Regional Corporation did reach out to me this week. We are going on a site visit tomorrow to see what can be done at one of the landslips at near the Massa compound, so at the junction between Brasso and Gran Couva. We will see what can be done. There's always this fear, though, of putting in temporary work, utilizing corporation resources where possible to put in temporary relief, and then the Ministry of Works treating that as they've been absolved of their duty. Because whatever temporary relief, it ought to be treated as such, and the proper works ought to be done. I mean, I have a landslip here in Gasparilla Bonaventure as well, where they put in a temporary structure, and I think it is now looking more and more that they intend to make that a permanent structure. And so this lack of accountability, this lack of pride in what you deliver to citizens, what you say to Trinidadians and Tobagonians, that you say to them, this is what we're providing to you as an executive, as a government, who you've given us the duty via an election to treat with your basic needs. I mean, when you look around society right now, you see that they really don't respect the social contract and the mandate that they've been given since 2020.
But, you know, MP, judging from what you are telling us this morning, it's actually unbelievable because of the hardships that members of the community Gran Couva are going through, and it is sort of unbelievable that that these concerns have been made public and there is a level of inaction by the ministry.
Yeah. So that's why, like I said, I make sure I'm very diligent in terms of putting everything in writing. And so when I met with some of the residents and when I issued my press release at the onset of the protest action, I was able to detail from the beginning where we would have been saying, these are the issues that we're facing. We sent photos to the Ministry of Works and Transport. We sent video. We were present with Ministry of Works on their initial site visit. I mean, so it is really abhorrent and shocking that they have continued to drag their feet, that there is no work done. And there isn't even the urgency to deliver a timeline. There isn't even the urgency to say, yes, well, we've been doing this. This is the part that will come next. And, you know, we've always been told, well, you have to wait for the dry season, particularly with slope stabilization and any work in some parts of my constituency. We're told dry season. Well, this is dry season now, you know. So.
Mm-hmm. I'm just reading a news report here where I'm also seeing that they are quoting a resident of the area, and they're speaking about taxi fees, and they're saying that it has now gone up to $30 because of the crumbling main road. And I'm just wondering, how are people able to afford this on a daily basis? Because I suspect in some cases you have families with a number of relatives, and you have a situation where each individual may have to pay this $30.
Correct. And that's $30 one way in some instances. And like I said, that Gran Couva main road is such a critical and important connector road, not just for the residents of Gran Couva, for the residents of Brasso, Flanagan Town, Tabaquite. You either up to add an hour in terms of transport time in one direction. So if you go through Flanagan Town, pass along Mamaral and Caparo, you go out that way. So you either add an hour of traveling time, increase passage, considering the increased cost of fuel over time, you add that expense, or you take these ridiculous chances. And I have shared images of the landslip. Some of these landslips, you are really taking major chances passing there. But in order to get to the places they need to be, because a lot of these students are going to school in Chaguanas, they're going to school in Pretal, they're going to school in Couva, they're going to school in San Fernando. These are things that you have to do. Persons are working in Port of Spain, working in San Fernando, working in Couva. And so you have or even if you're trying to come in, if you consider the health centers where the nurses come from, the teachers in some of these schools, they have to come in to go to school. And I mean, it is such, again, what is the most upsetting part to me as a representative is that these are basic needs. You are not asking for anything extra. You're not asking for anything special. You are literally asking for you to be connected from one place to another. Basic needs that we now have to literally be fighting for, literally be protesting for. And I think that is something that no Trinidadian or Tobagonian should stand for, that we really, really need to say to the government that if you are unable to do the basics, we really cannot ask you to solve big problems. If you can't figure out how to allocate resources to fix roads that you know are broken, how are you going to solve things like crime? How are you going to solve things like failing education rates? How are you going to solve the issues in the healthcare system when the basics of an allocation of resources to something that you know is broken, it stumps you on an annual basis?
MP, what's the next step by residents of the area and even you?
Well, I am going to the site visit. I'm actually on a number of site visits for the rest of today because we are looking at our bridges in terms of the agriculture access points. We are going to send further correspondence to the Ministry of Agriculture. So I'm on site visits today and tomorrow, and then I'm in Parliament on Friday. I'm going to attempt to bring it as an urgent question in Parliament so that we can see if we can get the Minister to answer some questions on the national record. I'm going to use my parliamentary platform, certainly my media platforms, to highlight. And I said before, we have some small measure of hope with the meeting with the chairman of the Couva Tabaquite Power Corporation. And I will say this, though, where we have to utilize local government resources, corporation resources to fix issues by the Ministry of Works. When you consider the multi-billion-dollar allocation to the Ministry of Works and the $1 million allocation to the corporation, I think it is extremely unfortunate because in a space of finite resources, you will be taking from something the corporation has to do somewhere and trying to fix a problem that the Ministry of Works they've been allocated the money to fix, and they've just been negligent in their duty.
Yeah, Member of Parliament for Tabaquite, Anita Haynes Alleyne, thank you very much for speaking with us this morning. It's always good speaking with you, MP.
Thank you, and have a good day, and Happy New Year to all the viewers.
All right, bye for now.